Good evening, friends. Welcome to another episode of We Need Each Other podcast, episode 14, conflict resolution. Give me 1 second. Let me fix my lighting. Do I like that one better? I'm on a really good eyebrow day. Hello, everyone. Hello. Episode 14. This is going to be a really good one. Hey, Josh. Hey, Daisha. Let me bring you in, Josh. Let's see. You want to request to join, Josh? Let's see. Right here. I got you. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Hey.
Drum roll.
Woo! I feel like we haven't done drum roll in a while.
Yo, feels good.
How you doing?
Yo, feels good to be back. Feel like we ain't been home in a while.
I know. There's no place like home. Hello, Instagram. Good evening. Happy Tuesday. I was going to say happy Monday. I'm like, the long weekend, it always throws me off.
Yo, last week we tried to go live on Facebook, had some technical difficulties, but no one treated us like this. I'm telling you, it's good to be back. Now, back to regular scheduled program. How you feeling?
I feel great. I feel amazing. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
Yo, I'm very calm. I got my water. I got my notes. My phone's fully charged.
I got notes.
Nah, man.
I know I got notes. You got the alphabet ready too?
That's the one thing. Yeah. I got it in my head. I'm about to.
Hello, everyone. Oh, thank you for joining. See, this is our home. Instagram, we won't ever cheat on you again. Don't you worry.
Yo, so real quick, explain the icebreaker real quick, so we can get it to as I jot down the alphabet.
Okay. Oh, but you know what? I went back on TikTok to watch, and they don't pay attention they don't have the alphabet written down, but it's okay. We'll make our own rules. Okay, guys. So today's icebreaker, I found it on TikTok, and I actually played this game with my siblings, and it was so much fun. We have to start a conversation and then continue it in alphabetical order. So the next person has to respond with the next letter of the alphabet. So A, B, C, so on and so forth. So you ready?
Set it off. Go ahead, girl.
Are you excited for tonight?
Bet. I'm good and I'm ready to go.
Can't wait.
Yo, didn't you miss Instagram? Because Facebook was acting funny last week.
Exactly. I really missed Instagram.
Forget about that. We back to regular scheduled program. We about to have an awesome show.
God, I was praying for it to work today.
Yo.
Whoa. No. He lost. And that you trying to be real slick too, trying to pick it up, trying to clean it like
my letter was H, so I was gonna be like how odd or that was fun. I like that.
Good icebreaker. I was hoping we would finish it, honestly.
Yeah, I was trying. You got a bigger natural, Lord. Let me. Yo, one thing I do want to say that I think it was important to say in terms of the calmness of spirit and calmness of mind and everything. One thing, just the last week we didn't do. So every week behind the scenes, before we go live, we say a quick prayer. We just kind of get our minds right. We pray that our voice be used in the most beautiful way, and that God uses us in an incredible way to translate love to the people. And I realized last talk, we didn't have that. And I think that was the start of like even throwing the energy off to kind of start with. Literally from every show, probably from the first to the 12th show.
I agree.
Allowed that calmness to kind of come in, get our minds right. And I think that perfectly ties into the conflict resolution in terms of starting out with a slate of calmness in terms of when you're approaching anything, any kind of situation. I think the base foundation for that in terms of before there becomes any conflict or before anything comes up to play, whether a base for a relationship, a base for a conference, a meeting, it's beautiful to start with prayer. So I'm glad we started out today praying. I feel centered. I feel good.
Really good point to bring up. I didn't even realize that, honestly. I don't know. I just think that day everything was like happening so fast and we were like, okay, let's just go live on Facebook. But this is episode 14, and that was the first and only episode that we did not start with a prayer. And that was
the first one.
Happen again.
And also the first one, we both wasn't on camera like that. It was weird. It was weird all the way around. And just being all the way transparent, that NAG kind of threw it off. And then from there, we was kind of just trying to get back and trying to figure it out from there. And so in terms of just rolling with the punches, in terms of how do you deal with conflict, how do you express yourself, it brought amongst some really great conversation. And I like the fact that in the conflict, we were able to hear each other, we were able to understand where each other was coming from, whether we agreed or not. We were able to listen to each other and kind of figure out where each is coming from. And I think that's the root of conflict resolution. Just really like, well, first, I think for me, prayer. I mean, bring God into the situation, bring that calm spirit, and then you can kind of exchange. So I think that was dope. I'm proud of us for
so keep in mind, like, why did you start what you started? Why do we create this podcast? That always has to be in the back of our mind, and just reminding ourselves that no matter what, go back to that why, go back to that purpose. I think that's also important. Of course, prayer number one, and always remembering your purpose and your why to any conflict, right? With like business partner, it's a relationship, right? Like we're in a business relationship. What your partnership with your colleagues, your relationship with your siblings, like everything, a friendship, that everything is a relationship. Anything that's a two-way street is a relationship. And just keeping that in mind. And also too, I think when you care about someone, you know, when you, even if it's not romantically, but just as a friend or as a partner, as a sibling, family member, whomever, like you also have to bring that in too and take into consideration their feelings, their perspectives, their thoughts, whatever they're going through on top of the situation, on top of the conflict. That's also very important to keep in mind, and not being so defensive.
I love that. I love that. You said that why. I think that's like, even for me, that brought me back, even in terms of whatever disagreements you kind of have amongst, like you said, family, business, romantically, whatever, to kind of go back to the reason why you're here, the reason why you decided to be together. And for us, it was the reason why we decided to have this podcast. When can you get back to the ground foundation of what you built, the root of what you build on, the other things kind of seem frivolous. And then you realize that the why it kind of takes precedence over all. So dope.
Hello everyone. Oh, my mommy is on. Hi mom. I'm such a mama's girl.
Shout out to her. So we want to invite people today to join our conversation and also chime in. If someone has something that they want to say, we'll kind of tag you in. What we're talking about from many different perspectives, conflict in general. A lot of people have different ways of kind of doing it, and realize when one person has been raised for years a certain kind of way, and you have another person that was raised for years a certain kind of way, they're going to be differences. And part of the relationship is examining those differences and actually seeing where the commonality is, or sometimes listening and agreeing to disagree at times as well, but respectfully trying to understand where they're coming from.
Also, I want to add to that.
Please.
How we were raised, and at the end of the day, our gender, no matter how much we try, we are different in a good way. You know, God made us differently. Like women think a certain way, men think a certain way, and that doesn't make it wrong. But we just have to keep in mind, like, oh, he might not think the way that I think, and vice versa, because we never do, ever. We were not meant to be the same, and that's a great thing.
Yo, that's important to say. And then for me as a male, exploring that, I'm still learning. And a lot of times I think I know exactly how females think because I was raised with my mom and my aunts and my cousins or my friends. But every day I'm learning something. I'm learning something every day. And even I had a moment with my mom yesterday where, again, I had to learn the way she kind of was thinking and use it and I just jotted down. Conflict resolution is a topic. Let's see what Jazz said. What's up, Jazz? How are you? Conflict resolution is a topic I speak about with all of my clients. How you go about it really impacts all of your relationships. Say that twice.
Right.
Yeah, it's maturity too. Because sometimes when people are in their mind that they don't want to resolve it, you ever been to someone where they're coming to the table knowing that they're going to stay on their side,
Yeah.
and that's it. It's a hard place to be, because they're not even in a point to admit they're wrong or even understanding. Versus someone who's looking to solve it, they'll say my bad very easily, my bad, because I genuinely want a resolution.
It's very hard when you meet with someone and they're coming to the table in a defensive mode, or immediately ready to attack or be prepared to be attacked, and they're coming to the table with ego, and they're coming to the table with anger and just emotions all over the place. And I'm huge on that. It's okay, you can go through all the emotions, but you have to grow through those emotions, and all of the emotions, like the ups and downs. You can't stay stuck. And conflict resolution don't work for someone like that. When they're just like in that mode and they're across from you in that table, or phone call, Zoom, FaceTime, whatever it is, there's no budging. Like
they come
they're just
they come into the ready to fight.
Absolutely.
And I think in terms of when I started out, when I said prayer, for me, that's what prayer does. Prayer removes that ego. It's kind of coming on a commonality. If you sit there and you hold hands with someone and you're praying with someone before you go into a meeting or before you go into a situation, y'all are coming with a like state of mind, and intentionally you pray for peace, and you pray for the know-how, or you pray for the dissolvement of ego. So when and the ego sometimes is very natural. We're human. Sometimes we think we're right, and we're so tuned into thinking that we're right that I can't see the other side.
Yeah. And you're to it with God right in the center of it all, which is the most thing. Like, let me tell you something. There's nothing or no one I love in this world more than God. And I was telling the other day, I was like, I feel like I'm in a stage of my life, like this current phase, that I am really in a deep friendship with God. And of course, I've always seen him like my father, my creator, my everything. But now I feel like we're in like this deep friendship. Like, he is my homie. And what I'm keeping in mind is I don't ever want to hurt God. So I don't ever want to hurt my friends. I don't ever want to hurt my family. So trying to have grace for people the same way that he has it with us. Even when we come to him with something that we did or said that is not pleasing to him in his eyes, he still doesn't treat us with the ego. He still does not dismiss us or judge us. He might get a little upset, but I be like, sorry, God, your girl ain't perfect here. I'm trying. But he still welcomes us with open arms. So I'm trying to apply that in every relationship in my life, with family, with friends, with business partners, with everyone. Like, just trying to have more grace for people. And like, I can never be God. I won't ever compare myself to him. Nobody on this earth. Like, he is a perfect God, and none of us can ever be him. But we can try to be like him and use what he has taught us through scripture or prayer or different signs that he gives us. And that includes having grace for people and trying to reach a common ground, and not always wanting to be right, or coming to you with my ego, or coming to you with everything you did to me, but I'm not admitting what I did or what went wrong from my end. So I really think it's important to build that friendship with him, because you have a better understanding as a whole, and each aspect in every relationship in your life. So it's I'm telling you, I am such a special like phase in my life, and I am just so thankful for that.
That's fire. Someone told me ego stands for edging God out. And when you bring ego into the equation, you're just edging out that divine knowledge or that divine reset. And when you bring God in, you're able to kind of see it with an open mind. I'm not coming with ego. I'm not coming with anger. And real quick, before we really get into it, I want to shout out some people that's in the room. I got a lot of family that's in the room. What's up, Bam? Yo, I see you. I see a couple people. And one of the things that actually help build the person I am is through arguments sometimes with my family, disagreements with your friends. And some of the best friendships come from fights.
Absolutely.
Some of the best friends, it comes from disagreements, especially as men. Sometimes we have to clash. Sometimes you on your side, I'm on my side, and we kind of figure it out to where, and sometimes it may involve a fight. That's a lot. That's masculinity clashing heads sometimes. But what happens through it, there's a resolution. And sometimes it's just submitting. And men don't even want to talk about that in terms of submitting to another man. It sounds crazy, submitting to another man. For me, submission looks like honoring that someone does something better than me. And usually when it comes to male figures, there's usually one who knows more than the others. And that person should lead. And the other men, they may not be alpha in that room. They may be alpha in another room where they can give direction and they can give leadership. But in terms of that conflict resolution, if you think you're the man, if you think you have all the answers, you're not even listening to the person who may be a scholar, who may have a degree in that same thing, but your ego is on go. I'm usually the one that controls the room.
Right.
I'm usually the one that is in control of everything, but that's ego. And for me, submission is listening to the person who knows the most in the room and submitting to that. But sometimes for men, it's hard. We have to fight. But yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that word, that's even hard. That's just, I was gonna say, as a man, I ain't no man, I promise you, I ain't no man. But I can imagine as a man, just that word alone, like, I gotta submit to another.
Right.
You bugging, you know, like that's tough. But I do want to acknowledge Jasmine mentioned, I think it's important. She put, there's a lot that goes into how you react to conflict. Upbringings, trauma, friends, society, and social influence. That is so true. That is so true.
Talk about it.
And too, sometimes people, like the way you talk to people or the way you act certain towards someone, it triggers them. It triggers a trauma from their past, or it triggers a really bad memory, or it brings them to a situation that they were in a really dark space. And sometimes they don't even know that. Like, it takes for someone to do or say something for you to realize, oh, wait a minute, I've been here before. It with a different person, but I've been here before, and this doesn't feel right. Like, this is very traumatic and triggering. So I also try to keep that in mind, because I have found myself in certain situations where people have said or done something, and I'm like, damn, that really bothered me. That hurt a little bit, you know. And it's trying to get to the root. Why is that bothering me so much? Why, out of everything they said or did, why did that stand out the most? Where did that stem from?
Because you sound just like my ex. You said it just like my ex used to say it. That shit hit the nerve. My ex said that same thing.
I get like, wait a minute. This looked like a different person, but they acting like the same person from the past, you know. So just trying to keep that in mind, that a lot of people do have unresolved trauma, and that's also something that we have to take into responsibility and to take into consideration for ourselves and hold ourselves accountable. Like, you're not responsible, or anyone is responsible to heal me but me. And if you don't do the work, you can't continue blaming other people for making you feel some type of way. Like, you also have to do the work, and also voice your trauma, voice your triggers. Like, hey, you did that and you said that and that bothered me, that hurt me, that's triggering. I have no problem with saying that and speaking up, because people won't know unless you say it. So it's also very important to acknowledge that.
Yeah, speaking of triggers, I remember being in a relationship with a young lady, and she used to say things that used to remind me of. I'm sorry, say that again?
No, I was like, I like how you said, with the young lady.
With the young lady, a beautiful young empress. No, she used to say things that used to remind me of my mom. And regardless if she was right or wrong, I used to hate hearing it, because I used to hear my mom's echo. So I used to I'd be like, yo, Daphne, shut up. Oh, my mom here. I'm not talking to your mama. But no, all jokes aside, to where I couldn't even zone into the fact if what she was saying was right or wrong. I just zoned into the fact that it sounded like my mom. And it took me back to a point in my childhood to where I didn't want to hear it. So I literally blocked out whatever she was saying initially. And then even maturity, I had to learn to say, yo, this girl is right. Or even in the case with me and you, there's a lot of times where, like, creatively, like you'll have, in addition to something, you say, hey, maybe it should go like this, or maybe you should add this and that. And in my mind, a lot of times I'm like, I don't think so. Like, because I only can see it in my way. Especially when it comes to creativity, I will give it up to you specifically, but women in general, you have a way of seeing things that men don't see it. A way that men couldn't even possibly see it. And 9 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10, but the majority of the time, I tried out your way, I come back, I'm saying that was fire. But initially, I couldn't see it. So sometimes that's, again, the submission that we're talking about. Just learning to listen, learning to try, and learn to be open to a different perspective, and not trying to be right.
That's so important that you mentioned that, like, because a lot of times you hear women submitting to men, or you see, especially on social media, all you see is like, oh, women can't submit or women should submit, but you never hear men submitting to us. And for example, like in our business relationship, sometimes there's times that you're like, oh, okay, let's do it your way. And I can see that like you're a little bit apprehensive at first, and then you're like, all right, let's do it. And you do it and it comes out good. For example, too, at my job, 90% of boss babes in there are women. Like from the
You said boss? I'm sorry, boss?
boss babe, like she's a boss. They're females.
What's the boss, babe?
A boss babe, like a female boss.
Okay, I
You
never
ever
heard that term, but go ahead, let's go.
or
Nah,
something
let's
like
roll with it. Boss babe, let's go.
yeah. So it's a lot of female bosses like making big decisions, and a lot of the times the guys, but in my job it's so crazy because the men submit like so naturally and so easily. I don't know if it's because they feel a little bit intimidated because there's so many of us females and we come together, and it's not like we're not pushing it on you, but it's like here's the idea. It's like we're open to hear your thoughts and your opinion and perspective, but at the end of the day we think this is what's going to go. And I see that a lot. So when it comes to like our business relationship for the podcast, I'm like, why isn't he submitting? Like I'm used to like the men at my job just submitting. So it's interesting. It's like really teaching me something different and like different perspectives and just a whole different ball game, because this is not what I'm used to. And even though you do it and then you're like, oh, you know what, it worked out, but at first you're like, and I'm not used to that. Like at work, the guys is like, whatever, that's what you guys want. Okay, here you go.
Hey, that goes back to not when I say submission to a man, but it's goes across all genders. It's who knows what's best,
Mm-hmm.
or who may have the best idea at the time. And ego says it doesn't have to come from me.
Mm-hmm.
Ego says the best idea doesn't have to me. But in that, sometimes finding out what that is, I want to be listened to.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I'm listening to you because we're figuring it out at that point. So we don't know who has the best idea. And it's usually you leaning a little to my way and say, okay, I'm going to try and put my feet in his shoes. Okay. All right. And then me literally try to do the same thing and
Mm-hmm.
objectively saying, yo, which shoe fit better? Nah, oh, I went over to your side, you said something, and I'm with it. I'm with it. No ego. But
Mm-hmm.
a man's ego comes into play when he's not listening as well. So we just want on both sides to say, hey, listen, I'm willing to come to your side, and you're willing to come to my side. And usually, 9 times out of 10, probably 10 times out of 10, it's usually one idea that wins. It's usually one person who has to take lead. It's usually one person who has to be the one that's lead. And when you're in a position to where you're not worried about who that is, when you're
Mm-hmm.
thinking about the collective, that's love. That's real. I think that's conflict resolution on a
I
real time
think
basis.
it's so important to just reach a common ground and compromise from
Mm-hmm.
both. But I'm a huge believer in a healthy compromise. Like I shouldn't have to compromise and go against my own boundaries and beliefs. Like I shouldn't have to compromise and still feel uneasy and have anxiety and not at peace. So as long as it's a healthy compromise for both parties, then cool. But once you step over my boundaries, or once you disrespect, or once I feel like I'm not in it, I'm just giving in to make you feel better, then that's a problem. And I think sometimes people do that because one, they don't want to lose the person, no matter what type of relationship it is. And two, they just want a solution. Like, okay, if I give in, we're gonna solve it. Without
Mm-hmm.
that, it'll solve it for the moment, but as time goes on, that's building up and you're still upset, you're still anxious. This is not you. Like when you kind of change yourself for somebody else, you're gonna explode. Eventually you're gonna end up exploding because that's not you. So you know you're not living up to the person that you truly are, and it kind of like eats you alive. So healthy compromise, I always hear compromise. No, healthy compromise
Yeah,
is
I don't think women don't want that from men. Speaking from a man, women don't want that from men. A man who's going to just tell them yes, just kind of end the conversation. They lose
oh
respect for you in that. They're saying you're not really voicing it. You're just saying it's just to shut me up. You're just kind of going with it, and vice versa. A man who's really worried about the best idea or real loving, strong relationship. I want you to voice your opinion. I don't want you to kind of go along just to get along, because I want to genuinely find the real deal
Balance,
root of the problem.
balance it out. That's kind of like the same thing as, remember when I said the other day, like, I don't do fake apologies. Like, I don't ever want someone to apologize to me just to shut me up.
Yo, let's talk about
Don't do that, because
it.
that's gonna piss me off. Like, don't be fake about your apology, you know. And then it's like, if you're not sorry, don't say sorry.
Yo, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So
Hey,
now, in terms of when I'm at a point where I may not agree, or you may not agree, or I can't even really understand, a lot of times I was saying my apology comes from the fact that you feel a certain kind of way. I think that's a maturity I had to learn, because usually, again, my ego comes into play. I don't feel I'm wrong. I don't need to say apologize. I don't need to submit on any level. I'm not wrong, right? But the person on the other side is still hurt. The other person on the other side is still, however you meant it, you may not intend to hurt, but you hurt this person. And there's a saying, I know, happy wife, happy life, or something like that. In terms of, if you ask a lot of married men, I'm sure, what's more important, to be right or to be happy?
absolutely.
Or, like, you know what I mean? And sometimes having that happy household is more important than being right. So sometimes the submission looks like, I don't need to voice that right now. What's not important right now for me to win? It's really not important for me to win. She was hurt by it, me acknowledging the fact that she was hurt by it, and me trying to genuinely understand. I don't have to stand on my side and say, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right. Yo, so
There's
with this,
there's two different sides to that. I feel like, because some people can say, I'm sorry that I hurt you, and other people can still feel like, I'm sorry that I hurt you, but I'm not sorry that I did what I did, or I said what I said. So I guess is your choice of words too, because some people are generally not sorry for what they did, because they generally feel like they did nothing wrong, but they are sorry that the other person took it that way and felt that way, even if that was not the intention behind it.
should someone apologize if they didn't literally, if they feel that they're, in terms of finding the correction? Because that's what it is. I think apology is about not only reconciling how you're feeling, but it's also reconciling or finding a better way of doing it next time. So usually I'm apologizing because I'm saying I could have done it better. I couldn't have, but if
Apologies should be said if they're intentional.
say that once again.
Apologies should be intentional. If they're not, they should not be said. Like, don't apologize if you're not if there's no good intention behind it. If you're not really willing to put in the work and not do that or say that again.
Oh, right. I absolutely. If I plan to do the same exact thing the next time, there is no reasons for apologizing. Right. And that's a slippery slope, because there are times when I say, hey, listen, I'm trying to find the fault in what I did. I'm trying to find the fault in what I'm saying. But, and usually, to be very honest, if you really search yourself, there's something that you could have done better. There's a different, because it's not what you said, sometimes how you say it. You're not wrong for what you said, but the way you said it hurt that person. And if you really search yourself, you could have said it with love, or you could have said it in a different way to show that you have care for that person. So even that, I think that's valuable in saying, what I said, I still stand on what I said, but the way I said it, I definitely could have catered more to how you felt, thinking about the collective versus just how I feel. Yeah.
And that also ties into continuing to doing the inner work, because sometimes you convince yourself that you're not wrong, and sometimes you're the problem. Like, the other person, no, facts. Like, because I can't stand when people are like, he did that, she did that, they did this. It's like, okay, homie, sometimes you're the problem. Let's keep it real, right? But a lot of times people convince themselves, like, nope, I wasn't wrong. What I did or what I said was cool. Like, I don't see no, like, no, I'm not taking no fault for that, because I meant what I said. I meant what I did. And don't they always say that you should always say how you feel, right? So people really convince themselves, and it's kind of like you're delusional right now. Like, no matter what people do or say to you, you're still convinced that you're not wrong. And that ties into doing the inner work. Because when you truly work on yourself and you truly heal, you can say, you know what, I was wrong in that situation.
That's that ego. And when I say bring God into the situation, what I'm saying is bring the wholeness of everything. For me, God represents the totality of everything. It literally represents the energy inside of you, the energy inside of me, just for the greater good. So it's not me. It's not Joshua who has to be right. It's literally what's good for Joshua.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's good for me, what's good for you, what's good for the podcast, what's good for the meeting, what's good for the family, and everything. So when I ask God to come into the situation, I'm saying remove me and allow that collective voice to come in. And that's when, like I said, when it's no problem saying I apologize or I need to be right.
Right.
What I want people to do real quick, just how do you deal with conflict resolution? I know very specifically, I know energy, you have to do something with it. So let's say someone gets you upset, right? And now there's different ways to kind of deal with it. Some people like myself may go internally and they digest it, and sometimes they won't let it out until they're angry. Some people go into journaling. Some people talk to friends. Some people literally vent on people who have nothing to do with it. Some people explode. Like there's one person who did me wrong who I want to fight, but because I can't fight that person, they go home and they explode on their wife or whatever it is. So I do want people to jot down in terms of conflict resolution, or in terms of taking the energy, because the energy goes somewhere.
Absolutely.
You got to do something with it. And when you're feeling a certain way, and this is part of our conversation I kind of want to open up, when you are feeling a certain way, how do we now deal with that in terms of the energy is not just going to dissipate into thin air. Usually it comes through talking to the source, maybe talking to someone else. Some people go into prayer,
Journaling,
and all that, but the energy is going to go somewhere. And like I said, some people, me personally, I think a lot of times unhealthily, I'll internalize that. I'll even go to the point where I'll convince myself that it's not a big deal. And then I realize I've tucked it away, but it's really hurting. I'm learning how to take the energy and go to the source. I'm going right to it. I have to meet exactly where it's at, and I try to do it in a loving way, but I try to go directly to the source. Other people have different ways of doing it. So this is one of the ways that we was kind of birthed this kind of conversation in terms of our differences in the way we kind of deal with it. So when someone pisses you off, I want to take myself out the equation, but let's just say someone in general pisses you off, you're hot about something. There's the source, the person who pissed you off, and how do you go about that? Well, literally when you're maybe too hot to kind of talk or whatever, to just talk about that from your point of view. How do you deal with that once you're literally pissed off at the person, but you know some resolution has to come? What is your best way to get to that?
Before I answer that, two things I want to say. What you said, that you internalize it. Growing up and even in adulthood, I've heard a lot of guys say that, and that's so unhealthy from my perspective, right? From the woman, it is so unhealthy because we want you guys to voice how you feel. We want to talk to you and find a resolution. And what ends up happening is we feel like we're annoying you because we're like, what's wrong? What's going on? You're not acting like yourself. This is not you. Like, you look upset. You look sad. Like, what's going on? And you guys are just like, nothing, like holding it in. And then what happens? Explode. And that ends up causing more conflict in the relationship or a situation, whatever it is. Number one. I also asked this question on my Instagram story earlier, and the options I gave people. So I said, how do you resolve conflict, like with family, friends, business partners, etc.? And the options were immediately, you take time to cool off and kind of like process everything that's going on, you ignore it, or other. Majority of the votes were for taking time to calm down and just processing everything that happened. And I agree. For me, I guess it depends on the situation, right? In the past, I want to say I was more of the immediately type of person. Like, you piss me off, or or I'm sad, I'm disappointed in you, whatever the situation was, like, I was going to pop off immediately and react like very impulsively. And that's so bad because you can't take words back.
Say that.
You really can't. And some people walk around saying, oh, it's just words. Words don't hurt. No, words cut deep. Certain words really hurt. And you don't forget that. No matter if the person forgives you, that's still in the back of your head. Like, no, you said that. And some people hold on to certain words for years. So as growing up, I was like, okay, Kayla, you really can't be popping off You really can't be impulsive. You really can't be going 0 to 1,000 for every situation. Like every situation doesn't even require your attention or your reaction to it. Like it's not that important. So now I really take time. And when I say time, I'm not gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna take a week to calm down. No, I maybe a few hours, maybe a day, but I really need to take time to myself to one, calm down, and two, try to process everything. Look at my sister, and I call my sister. I call my sister because if somebody can calm me down, it's my sister. Let me tell you something. She saved a lot of people in this lifetime. Okay, I need to call my sister and process things and just be like, listen, am I bugging? Like, am I overreacting? Kayla, you're you have grown. Thank you. Thank you. Kayla has grown for sure. And you know, I think it's so important to go into your outlets too. And it all depends on the situation and the type of relationship it is, right? Or what has just transpired. But I go to my sister with pretty much everything. And I was running out of bail money. Wow. Wow. Yeah,
You
JK.
used to get serious.
I think it just really depends on the situation. I know that for me, going to like my outlets, and it's also important to have the correct people around you, because if you have the type of family members or friends that are always going to agree with you and enable your bad behavior, well, I was gonna say get new people. Well, you can't get new family, but get new friends. You cannot be around people that was gonna be like, yeah, you were right, no, you're not overreacting, they were wrong, and just enabling that bad behavior, because you're never gonna grow. And I get it. Sometimes people love us and care about us so much. They don't want to hurt us and tell us the truth. No, tell me the truth. And my sister keeps it all the way real with me. Like, she'll be like, nah, you were wrong. Nah, you should have never said that. Or she tries to like help me lay out the issue and we can like navigate and see where I went wrong. So I go to her a lot. I always go to God. Like, no matter what, I'm like, God. And it was so funny because I mentioned this during my spiritual mentorship group. I told the girls, I'm like, listen, God knows this heart is good, but this mouth and these hands, they ain't always on the same page with this heart. Like, when I'm upset, I am upset. So I'd be like, God, you know your daughter. You know my heart is good, but I really need help right now. And I really need help with resolving, like, what are the next steps? Like, whether you give it to me while I'm praying, give me a sign, give me something that I read, scripture, or I could journal and you just come to me. But I think it's so important to having that strong connection and relationship with God, because nobody else is going to guide you more than him. And after you calm down and after you can process things and write down what bothers you. Like, I am huge on, if you look at my notes on my iPhone, I have over like 3,000 notes because I write everything down. And go into that meeting with that person or that conversation with notes. Like, listen, like, and tell them, no, I'm dead ass. Like, and tell them.
Yo, you come with backup. You come with.
Like,
You can strategize your attack.
I mean, let me tell you something. I got a list of notes that what you did that really hurt me and upset me. And I'm not trying to come at your life. I just want to make sure I address everything and I don't forget nothing. I think it's so important to journal and write things down and let it all out once you have calmed down.
To add to that, see, now my thing was, I think the importance of handling something as soon as you can. First, we're talking about people that you love. We're talking about people who you genuinely want to resolve it with. And usually, hopefully, in terms of bringing the issue to it, you can be calm enough to, you know, like you said, I totally honor the fact you need to be in a calm space to deal with it. That's first, because we don't want to throw darts. We don't want to throw shots. But if something happened, I think in the essence of time, deal with it so we can do it play by play. We can understand exactly what happened. And also, we don't build evidence in the wrong direction. Sometimes we build up our anger, or we build up things that we think in our head, and sometimes it becomes a simple apology. Hey, listen, you really had me tight when you said this. And the other person might just say, I had no idea you felt that way. I had no idea. So here you are, gathering evidence, talking to this person, getting this opinion. I think in terms of when you are, and I'll definitely honor the fact when you're cool and level-headed, and because that's real. But I think as soon as that time comes, go to the person, because they're the source. They're the person who is actually in the actual argument. They know what they said. They know what you said. So now when you're explaining it to a friend, it becomes another voice that is added to the argument, where at times it just needs to be two voices. And especially when you're coming out of love, a person says, yes, I am wrong. I am apologize. Or I didn't know I said it like that. Or however it goes. But it's literally, once it's said with love, hand it, like how they say, get down when you're mad at.
And
Get down when you're mad at.
and that's where perspective, or train of thought rather, I should say, that's where different train of thoughts come into play, right? Like you just said, taking time. I don't know if you said like you specifically, but certain people taking time away from the situation or the person that upset them gives space and energy for negative thoughts. Certain people like myself, it gives me time to cool down. So I think it's just understanding how people navigate situations. And it's just perfect example. Like, oh, I wish I could like look at my votes while I'm on Instagram Live. I think I had like 15 people vote that they need to take time to cool off. And I had like 6 people vote that they address it immediately. So it's really a matter. And then I had one person vote other. And I'm still waiting for them to tell me what's that other. If you're watching, tell me what's that other. So it's just really a matter of understanding, like we're all different, right? And what can work for you may not work for the other person, but it's, there you go, compromising. Like, okay, this doesn't work for me, but I know if I speak to you right now, it's not going to work for you and it's going to make the situation worse, type of thing.
Absolutely. And then also it brings up differences, like you said, sometimes between the way men handle things, the way women handle things. And sometimes it's just on a personal level, but those things are coming to play. So I did wrote down 3 for my thing, main stages of like conflict resolution. First, I want to just encourage anybody, anyone who wants to tap in this conversation, you definitely tap in. We'd love to have somebody just voice their opinion and see where they're coming from. Okay, so when I brought it down in terms of, I think the first stage in terms of, so even before you go into the conflict, I put it in 3 stages. I said selection, awareness, and submission, action. Okay, so selection. I started that out because literally there's some people you just know they're going to grind your gears. You know I ain't got no business being in business with them. I have no business being in a relationship with them, or I can't talk to this person. So your first thing in conflict resolution, selection. Choose your fights. I don't need to be here. I know this person thinks this kind of way. I know I think totally different than them, and I know I know they're in a bad space mentally. I'm not going to go to that. First thing, selection. Then I said awareness. Awareness is knowing who you're dealing with. Now you're in a relationship with someone, or now you're in a conversation with someone, and I know you. I know the fact that you just got off of work, you worked a 16-hour shift, and the fact that you just said something to me that was a little spicy, that probably hurt me. Awareness brings it to, I know who I'm dealing with. I know she didn't mean it. I know she's tired. I know she needs to sleep. All that. So I think that's the second stage in terms. So in awareness, I put awareness, planning, discussion. That's when it's kind of like you have to understand who you're dealing with, and you can kind of understand where exactly people are coming from. And then I put submission or / action, execution. That's in terms of what actually happens after that. So just not putting all my business out there, but putting my business out there a little bit. My mom, she was really tired yesterday, and I was helping her doing something, and just being impatient, she kind of lashed out. She was basically rushing me, and I was telling her, I was like, "Hey, Ma, that's a little spicy. Like, I feel like you're not." She's probably hearing me, but it's okay. It is what it is. We'll talk about it later. But I felt that she wasn't. I was with her all day, helping her out, and I think it was one thing that I didn't do quickly enough. But in it, I had to. First, I told her, I was hurt by it, or I said like I didn't think that was warranted. But then I understood the night before, she had did a double shift at work. She came in this morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I saw her back up at like 10, 11 o'clock doing the work. So I didn't even take into account or the awareness of who I was dealing with at that point. And that's when grace comes into play. That's when ego comes out of play. So that's why I put it as selection. The first, I ain't got no business talking to this person, or this person is not even on my level, or this person has a certain kind of disposition. Choose your fights. That's first. Then I said awareness. Awareness in terms of who you're dealing with, giving people grace, understanding the relationship we had, understanding they didn't mean it like that. And then the submission and action. And I put submission and action because that's like listening. That's the ego dissolving. That's yes. I think we need to do this, or I'm listening to what you kind of said. So I kind of broke it down to that. It's like from start to middle to finish, and in that's a healthy relationship.
I love that, and I would add to that, and it
Mm-hmm.
the cliche, but just admitting the fact that there is a problem, that there is an issue. You know how many past situations that I have been in, and the people are just like oblivious, like, really? There's a problem? There's an issue? Yes. And this is the issue. Here are the facts. Like, this is the issue. So when we can both admit, okay, something went wrong, whether you feel like you were wrong or not, but now there is an issue that's in the middle, and both attacking that issue, not attacking each other. It's so important, and keeping in mind, like, okay, let's dead the issue.
It's dead the issue.
Going back and forth, like, I'm on my side, you're on your side. Let's come together and dead what's in the middle. That's so important too, to just acknowledge that. I want to read some of the comments.
People are sometimes going through internal things, and that sometimes plays a role. Absolutely. So that's the awareness, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
That's the awareness. So even bringing to my mom's attention, just basically saying, "Your mom, I didn't think that was cool, right?" Mm-hmm. We ended up still doing whatever we had to do, but I still felt some kind of way. So I'm putting up the curtains.
Brought that up though, because like with our parents, especially like Caribbean parents or Hispanic, Black, and brown parents, sometimes you're kind of like feel not, I don't want to say afraid, but you always have that strong respect for your parents, right? And you never want to disrespect them or hurt them. But we also have to keep in mind that we're adults now. And it's like, yeah, you're my mom and you're my dad, but you're also talking to another adult. And what you did or said bothered me and hurt me. So it's so important to, I don't want to say call them out, but call them out like, yo, like, no. I know I'm a kid, but
there's nothing wrong with saying call them out. It's okay, because it's literally or saying that hurt.
Yeah, like, mom, dad, like, that was not cool. Like, your tone, your choice of words. Like, I know I'm your kid, but I'm an adult now. At the end of the day, like, our parents work with people our age. Like, you're not gonna, even though they could be your kid, you're still gonna treat them like your colleague and your adult. So, and another adult. So that's how I expect for our parents to treat us as well. So,
and that mirrors everything that we've been saying in terms of when we bring things to the table. We talk with love, we talk without ego, but we confront it. We confront it. It's okay. Like, you know what I mean? Hopefully you're not at a point where you're too upset to even to where you're screaming or cursing at your parent or other, but you're saying it with love. You're saying that hurt.
Yeah. So
just follow the story real quick. I told her, explained that I was hurt, and I thought she kind of just brushed it off. She was like I'm sorry. And I was like, and I kept on putting up the curtains, but I was doing it with like attitude on my face. I was like, and then she was like, what's wrong? And I said, yo, mama, the energy's off. And then that's when we took the time to say, yo, let's really talk about it. And then I really let her know more in a detailed way how I was feeling, exactly why. And very sincerely, she then explained, which made me more aware. She's saying, you know, my asthma's bothering me. I'm tired. I didn't even consider the fact that I seen her at 10 o'clock in the morning, knowing she came in at 7 o'clock in the morning. That's 3 hours of sleep. She's out here, and she's been out here with me for over 12 hours doing this thing. So now it's the grace and the awareness, and also the humbling to say, you know what I mean, from a parent or whoever, I'm sorry. And that meant a lot. And I genuinely felt that she said, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say it like that. There was other things. I was actually projecting other things onto you.
Question.
So like you said, call it out. Yes.
Question with that specific situation. You said you were putting up the curtains and you were still upset. Did that bring you back to your childhood? Like when you were
first,
parents?
I think I was initially happy that I initially addressed it, because sometimes, like from the initial start, I wouldn't call it out. Like literally, when she kind of said it initially, I said, hey, yeah, I didn't think that was cool. So I was proud of myself for bringing it initially, but I don't think I really took the time to really be patient with it and tell exactly why I was mad. Did it take me back to my childhood? Not so much. It just seemed like a progression. It seemed like a progression, because like I said, childhood, you're silenced a little more. And I probably held it in, and I would probably waited a week or waited 3 days and say, you know, Ma, when you said such and such, yeah. So right now, I think it was progression for me. The fact that not only I was courageous enough to address it, and then also find a healthy resolution. And I didn't take it back with me. Sometimes we say things, but we didn't really get it out. So that's where listen come to play. And the second time when I addressed it, I felt listened to. And maybe that's the part of my child. Sometimes I didn't feel listened to, but in that aspect, I felt listened to. And then when you feel listened to, that's when real resolution comes. Because I think they genuinely want to find a solution, or they're genuinely apologizing. For real.
But it's so important. Like, I'm a huge believer for apologizing to the children.
Say that.
It starts from that young age, and you give them the power and the confidence to speak up and not to internalize everything or feel like they're always in the wrong or feel like no one owes them an apology. They grow up and they go back to, you know, it was my fault. The way she reacted or the way he reacted or what they did or said, that was just my fault. Something I did to piss them off or trigger them, and I deserve that bad treatment. So it's important to listen to them. Like, you know how many kids how many kids deal, and my sister could touch on this topic. You know how many kids walk around with depression and anxiety and just feeling low, and it can all be resolved with a simple "I'm sorry" or "I'm listening to you," especially coming from the people that you love the most, which is your parents.
Wow. And for me, that's why it was progression for me, because a lot of times I didn't get that apology. A lot of times it came later. So the fact that my mom honored my feelings enough to say, you know, I was wrong. I could have said it better. That made me seem eye to eye. So I do. So real quick, for the people who are just joining, we're just talking about conflict resolutions in healthy ways. We're coming from a personal standpoint in terms of how do people deal with it. Some people hold it in. Some people address it head on. Some people get down what they're mad at. And other people find other ways to do it, whether prayer, journaling, in different kind of ways. And I want to address, so Jasmine said, I statements are something I teach to my client. I kind of want her to go in a little more. Yo, Jazz, if you're available to tap in with us real quick to just expound on that, I wouldn't mind you tapping in. But I kind of think I know what you mean, but I don't really know, because I know she's coming from a therapist standpoint. I statements. I think she's talking about accountability.
Yeah, Jazz, can you elaborate a little bit more on that? And we missed a comment. Bam,
awareness. That's my cousin.
No, he had said something on prior to that too. He said, if I don't address it immediately, my feelings might change. Should address it because that's how you really feel. I want to say something to that. That's so. I'm really happy he commented that.
I didn't even see that. I got to keep my comments fresh. Go ahead. Go in.
From a male, you see how this. I love this because you see how different perspectives coming from a male. He said, I have to get it out the gate because my feelings might change. For me and for a lot of women, we have to process it, and our feelings are not going to change. We just have to really process how we feel. And also for us too, the truth is we're way more emotional than you guys. We might say something out of anger and out of hurt. So if we say it right off the gate, we can't take that back. So it's very
Bam, if you're still in the building, I want you to elaborate on that, because for me, what I take that as, when he says, if I don't address it immediately, my feelings might change. Some should address it out the gate, because that's how you really feel. I agree with, when you address it out the gate, a lot of times that's how you really feel, or that's when it's in its purest form for me. Sometimes if I don't address it right out the gate, either, like I said, I internalize that, or sometimes I pretend I'm not really hurt, or I kind of find a way to kind of deal with it. I go pray about it and feel better about it. But in reality, the issue still remains. And it usually resurfaces when I see that person. Like, yeah, okay. Yeah. That's the energy I had.
He would addressing it eventually. But for me, like, speaking from experience, from past experiences, and maybe this is why I think a little bit differently, because I've been there before and I've done that. And for me, it has not worked out because I've always spoken out impulsively and out of anger and out of hurt. So now I have learned, like, okay, Kayla, that does not work for you. You saying it immediately, you're going to hurt the other person. It's going to make the situation worse. So, and again, it really depends on the situation. It really depends on, what did she say? You sound ready.
You sound like that. Nah, get down when you're mad at. No, but one thing, I think that's one thing I'm really, I have struggled with, and that's probably where the aggression comes from. In terms of get down when you're mad at, and it's not a fight. It's just addressing things from a real standpoint. And I'm learning to lead with love. I'm learning to actually say things not out of anger, but let's talk about it, because we're gonna let time go past. Now we're not gonna be able to address it on a real time basis. We're gonna forget what each other said. Like I said, it allows assumptions to kind of go, and people assume this person meant it this way. Let's talk about it.
So for you, it does not depend on the situation or what just transpired. Like, no matter how you're feeling, even if you're on 1,000, you want to talk about it immediately.
See, for me to be at 1,000, it has to be something that's triggering. So it's bigger than what actually happened. It's actually that triggered something from some past trauma. So it's bigger than what the person actually said. There's a reason why I'm so mad at what the person said. But usually, if you're dealing with people who will love you and people who you selected or people who you're in family with or business with, if they say something that hurts you, I'm hoping they didn't say it with the intent to hurt me. I'm just hoping that they're voicing their opinion, and I was just a byproduct of that. So in knowing that they're not out there with swords swinging, yes, I'm gonna address it right then and there.
Okay.
Because I have no reason. Like, I'm not in fight mode yet. You shouldn't be in fight mode when it's not fight mode when you're addressing something. I'm just addressing it. Let's talk about it.
But it's not necessarily fight mode. I just think, like I mentioned earlier, it's not necessarily fight mode. It's just how people interpret and process things. It goes back to the voting pool. Like, a lot of people, 5 people voted immediately, 15, 16 voted. I need to take time to process things. It's just really understanding how people take things said.
I would say
Fighter mode or not, or whether you feel like it was something triggering from the past or something they just did, whether you feel like they did it intentionally or not, you really have to take into consideration how the other person is feeling and respect that's where boundaries come into place. Because
absolutely.
I'm telling you that I need time to cool off, and you keep on like bugging me and like calling and chasing me, and that happens in a lot of relationships too. Like, either party will say, listen, I don't want to talk about this now, I just need to calm down. But why? What's going on? Talk to me. I'm your partner. I'm this and this and that. It makes everything worse. So it really comes down to first acknowledging the fact that you and I are 2 different people. You and I think differently and process things differently, and we have to respect each other's space and boundaries.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think people want you to address it how I would address it. In fact, you're not addressing the way I address it. Now I'm trying to force you to address it. Not being a professional therapist, but I will say the things that really hurt us are tied to something bigger than the actual issue. So usually when I'm going through something and I'm triggered by something that someone says, I go back and I say, I need to fix the actual issue. I'm really mad at the way my father said that.
Right.
I'm really mad at the way my ex-girlfriend hurt me when she said that. And sometimes the person that's talking, they may say a portion of what the actual person actually says, but it's just that small thing you said
takes you back.
But it took me back to now a whole wound. So now you're getting the brunt, or you're feeling the anger of what the past unresolved thing did. So what I would say in terms of when we are feeling those intense emotions, I would definitely argue to say it's bigger than the actual issue. And not saying that you don't need to address it on site or address it with the person, but you really need to address what's really bothering.
Oh, absolutely. The root of where it stemmed from. Absolutely.
The root.
Right. The root of the root. Yeah, absolutely. Everything stems from something, and you really have to go down to that root and cut it. Because if not, you're just going to keep encountering that trauma or that issue in different people. Another thing too that I have learned is being able to say, that really bothered me, I need a moment. Because when you don't say anything at all, that's when it's an open door for the negative thoughts and for the assumptions and for people to start thinking other things. But if you could just take 2 seconds, and that's something that I'm teaching myself too, like, listen, just say, I need a moment right now. I'm going to talk to you later. Like, I don't want to, you hurt me, you disappointed me, that bothered me, but I'm going to talk to you about it later because I have to calm down and I need to process things. Something as simple as that. It makes all the difference, I feel. Because now that other person knows that you're not the type of person that wants to address it immediately, because then you're about to be on 1,000 and make the whole situation worse. Or even saying, listen, I'm really upset right now, and this is not me, or I was brought back to a version of me that I do not like, and right now I'm just going to say something that I do not mean, so I'd rather talk to you later. Something.
And as men, we have to respect that, but speaking from a man's point of view, that sounds something that we're not used to.
Of course. It's
usually men we don't talk like that. We don't say, hey, I have a problem, but let's talk about it later. No, we're saying I have a problem because it needs to be addressed. So and it has been said, we have to respect however the person gives it up and however the person because they know themselves more than I know themselves. But that can even be triggering. Someone saying, hey, there's a problem that needs to be addressed, but I don't want to talk about it right now.
They're just saying, listen, I am not in the mood to talk right now. Even if you don't want to say there's a problem, say I'm super angry right now, or I am hurt right now, and I'm just not in the mental state to talk to you about it right now. But
from a man's standpoint, sometimes that's the weirdest thing.
Well, you need to stop Married at First Sight, because let me tell you something. On Married at First Sight, a lot of these husbands be telling their wifeys that they need a minute.
Yo, but I totally, like, I'm learning to first, what we're doing right now is really beautiful, and there's no conflict at hand, but we're literally listening to each other, and in terms of trying to understand. So I'm not doing it with the idea of I'm trying to be right. I'm literally listening.
You're sharing, yeah.
And I'm sharing. So I think that's really beautiful. So when someone says, I need a minute right now, I have no choice but to say, she's telling me this probably for my own good. She's saying this, so I have to honor that. But understanding how my brain is wired, and I think some men, when someone says, hey, I'm feeling a certain way, or what we do hate is when women are feeling a certain way, but they show us through their body language. I'm going to show you I'm upset. We hate that.
Yep. I pick up on
when you're mad at, like, oh, say it.
Be honest real quick. Sometimes we do that on purpose too. I don't be
say it. We are
because we're mad, and it goes back to how I said in the beginning. We are different, and we're so mad, and we assume that you guys know exactly what's going on with us. And sometimes you go, no offense, but sometimes you're dumb as hell, and y'all really don't know. And it's like, she's mad? Really? Or and y'all start thinking a whole bunch of stuff and still don't figure out why we're mad. So instead of us voicing it, we feel like, no, he should know what's wrong with me. He knows what he did. He knows what he said. And the whole time y'all sitting there like, is she mad because I didn't take the trash out? Because I left the toilet seat up? No, we're not. We're at other things.
There's times when it came with me and you, when my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm thinking you'll be upset because of something else, and you hit me with a totally different curve. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I don't even get it. So even understanding how men think, it's a mixture of you understanding how we think and you coming to our sides, or you being open to actually, I don't want to say get down when you're mad. I hate to keep using that term, but in terms of voice, what it is, like, as soon as you can, because that's just how our brains have been wired to think. And us understanding that sometimes the emotional capacity for someone is not able to say it at that point. So it's literally coming in the sense, it's not so much us going to your side or you going to our side, it's us meeting at the center. But sometimes literally we do not know what you're upset at, and we need you to articulate that.
Part of the effort type of thing. Like, I know, like, me as us as women, we can say, he should know why I'm upset. But since I know that he don't know, let me tell him, type of thing. Something as simple as that.
Yo, conflict resolution. This is his best. I think so when we came together with this podcast, we wanted to have conversations that people needed to hear. Things that
we don't know the male. I don't know the male perspective on every single topic. So we really wanted to touch on this and just help people all around.
I'm learning. I'm learning just in this. Literally, I'm learning not even just from our other interactions, but literally understanding about the patience that's needed, not only for you, but other women in my life. Because I'm going to meet another woman who may say the same exact things. I don't have the capacity to talk about it right now, and I'm understanding. Oh, this is just how she thinks, and I may need a minute. And then for you, sometimes,
What
go ahead.
saying that because you keep saying like us women, we need a moment. I'm gonna send you a screenshot of my votes of the
Mhm.
people who voted. You'd be surprised how many guys voted on there saying that they need to calm down and process things before talking. So I like removing the female and male just person to person, and that takes time. You really have to take the time to get to know someone and what triggers them and what bothers them and what's their train of thought and what are their intentions. It takes time, and it takes this communication, talking, because when you just ignore it and assume, then you think you're talking to somebody completely different. Because based off your assumptions, we be creating people in our head all the time. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. No, they don't think like that. They don't act like that. Oh, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. Assumptions.
With relationships, I think that's why selection, choose your battles,
Mhm.
awareness, know who you're dealing with, and then you can actually take action. But that's an actual relationship. I think a healthy relationship, a healthy conversation.
This was good. This was really good.
Yo, shout out to you, girl.
I feel like we need a part 2 for this, and I want to have some special guests. I want to have like another male and another female as well, because we definitely need for this.
I would love that. I would love someone who is also like married,
Yeah.
someone who has literally had probably had fight it out. They probably went through some points when they didn't know when they was going to make it, but somehow they found a way back. I would love people to give their perspective.
I would also like to get perspective of people in business with the opposite sex,
Business with opposites. Okay.
like us. Like, listen, like you're a guy, I'm a girl. Like, I would love to get their perspective, and people that have been doing this for a long time too, right? Because we're only like, so just getting their perspective, how they resolve conflict, and all that, and keep the important piece of it in the middle, which is the business. Of course,
One thing
consideration.
I do want One thing I do want to say about business, which seems to keep coming up for me and I think really works really well, is having roles, having something that you do, something I do well, like it's your job and it's my job, and we can kind of come together and sing together. So
Mm-hmm.
even if you imagine a choir, there's, a tenor section, there's a soprano section, and there's an alto section. And then when the sopranos don't try to do what the tenors do, the tenors do that bass, that low, right? But they provide a certain kind of vibe to it, and the sopranos do their thing and the altos do their thing. And I think once everyone knows their roles and literally says, okay, I do this and you do that, I think that's how a lot of business relationships come together on a real standpoint, saying, I love when you do that and let me do what I do.
So speaking from experience, like currently I'm in a partnership at work, and it's 4 of us, and we each have roles. But it's also important to bring what you just came up with to the table, to also discuss it with the other piece of the party. Like, so it's 4 of us, and let's say I come up with this whole plan. I'm not just gonna launch it. I'm gonna speak to the other 3 people in this partnership. So knowing your roles, but also saying, hey, it's kind of like presentation. Like, I did this, I'm gonna present it to the thing. Oh, you agree? Let's launch it, type of thing.
I love that. Love that. That kind of brings back to our talk about the masculine and feminine balance. The way in the masculine, there's a little bit of feminine,
Mm-hmm.
and in the feminine, there's a little bit of masculine. So that's literally, yes, you may do something really, really well, but after you create it, run it by the other part, because they'll tweak it and they'll kind of add their kind of thing to it. So
Eyes.
yes,
It's a new set of eyes. Like when
I said,
you're
oh, okay, Gabby was breaking up. You said it's a
it's a
new
new
what?
set of eyes. Like if I'm working on something for a few days, then I present it to you. It's a brand new set of eyes, and you might pick up on certain things that I didn't see, and you can tweak it and fix it. Or you might say it looks perfect, and let's go, let's launch it. So it's always important to just keep other people's opinions and their thoughts and their perspectives as important as yours. In a
That's
business.
partnership. That's partnership on a real level. I think there should be conferences just based off of
Mm.
this. And I know there's marriage counseling and all this other stuff, but literally, how do people resolve things amicably, or how do
Like
people
a train.
voice their opinion? A training, or if you will, yes, before business. How do you
That
voice your opinion?
you said that train.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We all need it. I think us as a culture, we need it. Us as a people, we need it. And another example of why we need each other. We need to trade opinions. I was trying to turn that into a beautiful soundbite real quick. Let me try again real quick. So, there should be trainings on this, because that's partnership on a real level. It's an ability to voice your opinion, but also be listened to kind of assert yourself, but also being the receptive part
I feel like
as well.
this.
Hold on, you messed up the soundbite, and that's why we need each other. Nah, it's cool. But yo, this is dope.
Real quick, what are you grateful for?
I'm grateful for resolution. I'm grateful for resolution, because sometimes, I remember last week. I'm just gonna put it out there. There was something you said. You said, I feel a certain kind of way, and I don't know if I may not want to continue this with you. I was like,
Why? I should not be talking when I'm mad. That's what I'm saying. Give me my space.
oh, give me your space, and I think I kind of
My bad.
yes.
I didn't mean that.
Yo, much love. I didn't take it personally, and I think in terms of once people come together from a foundational standpoint, like I said, understanding why we're here, understand why we're doing it, and understand we're both coming out of love.
Mm-hmm.
So in that, there's no shots being fired. There's just perspectives, and everyone's thinking for the whole good of the podcast. And I believe, I know that's what you're coming from.
Absolutely.
And I always want to let you know that's where I'm coming from. So anything we have, we can kind of just talk it out. And if you're tight, it's okay. I give you some time.
We always solve it. I'm really grateful for healthy friendships, healthy relationships, like in every aspect. It takes maturity. It takes a level of faith and a level of peace and a level of healing to reach that certain peaceful and healthy friendship and relationship. And I'm really grateful for that, because you can't resolve conflict with everyone. Sometimes you just have to let them go.
That part.
Like, your time is up. Expired.
That's the part.
Instagram family and friends, we appreciate you all so much, and we hope and happy month of love. I hope you guys had a wonderful Valentine's Day. Yes. And keep spreading love and loving yourselves all month long.
Say that. Have a great night.